I remember when I was younger, it was Furby, but one year everyone was going for the Furby, and then it was Beanie Babies were super popular. I think they even made a movie, Jingle All the Way. The whole premise of that movie is everyone's going off that hot item, right? Hello, everybody. I'm Jared.
Hi, I'm Melinda.
And welcome back to The Secret Life of Inventory. This is a show where we talk about all things inventory management, and we give small businesses like you practical tips that they can use to improve their workflow and succeed. And in today's episode, we have a very special episode. It's all about holiday inventory management. We're going to give you some great tips and tricks on how you can manage your inventory during the peak season and really, make sure that you're not missing those shipments at this time.
Mm-hmm. The holiday is always an exciting time. And did you guys know that it can account for up to 30% of a retailer's annual sales? So that means if your inventory isn't in order, you can be missing out on a lot of potential sales. And fun fact, this is also our 10th and final episode of season 1 of The Secret Life of Inventory. And after this, we'll be taking a quick break to prepare for season 2.
Yeah, it's been a little over a year now. So we want to thank all of you guys for coming along on this journey with us on season 1. It's been great.
Yeah. So to start things off, let's talk about why inventory management is so important for the holidays. I remember doing some research, and according to the National Retail Federation, holiday sales in 2023 grew by 3.8%, which broke a record of $964.4 billion. But despite the growth over the years, 24% of small businesses in 2022 still reported running out of stock during the holiday season, which, like we mentioned before, is a lot of potential sales missed.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, it's always really hard to kind of figure out, spending habits, especially during uncertain times, recessions, pandemics, which we learned and things like that. But one thing is for sure that this time of year, people are going to be spending more money no matter what. So we know that.
So for all of these businesses who are preparing for the holiday season, what are some tips for them to find that perfect inventory balance?
Yeah, okay. So this is actually something that we're going to be talking about mostly today is going to be data, right? Analyzing historical data. That's going to be huge. Collecting data, analyzing that data is basically the best weapon that you have at this time of year, right? So you're going to be able to use the data that you have from your sales from previous years to kind of help inform your decision making for the year that you're in, right? You're going to be able to see, peak days, what products are selling really well, things like that, right? So it's all about your data.
Can you dive deeper into how to analyze the sales data and forecast demand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess for this, why don't we use like a fake company, like an electronics store, for example, right? We'll use them as an example. Let's say that they're gearing up for the holiday season and they really need to know what kind of inventory, what kind of stock they're going to need to order for this time. So the first thing that they should be doing is going to be gather that data. That's step number 1. Go over your previous years in the holiday season, kind of take a look at that data, crunch those numbers, and really identify, those peak seasons, things like, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas Eve, if you're a Commonwealth country, Boxing Day, like here in Canada we have, right? Take a look at those things and really take a look at the products that are selling really well. For example, we'll notice that as in our fake company, we'll notice that on Black Friday and Cyber Monday, we sell a lot of gaming consoles, headphones, smart home devices, things like that, right? So we can probably tell that those things will probably sell really well, this year as well. So you want to maybe order a little extra of those. And then once you have that data, it's about making sense of it, right? So you want to identify those trends. So like we said, talking about those peak days, what products are selling really well on those days, what products are underperforming on those days. That's all going to kind of inform what you're going to order, what you're going to need, what you're going to order more of, what you're going to order less of, all that stuff, right? Like we said, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you're going to be selling a lot of gaming consoles, headphones.
All the gamers are coming out.
Yeah, all the gamers are coming out, I know that's when I was buying all my consoles, when I was buying them. Yeah. And then there's stocking stuffers too, like wireless earbuds, portable charging devices, all that kind of stuff. So if you really gather your data and look at those trends, you're going to be able to get a good idea of what's to come from judging by what has happened in the past, right? And then once you're crunching those numbers, you can even take it a step further and really segment the data, like really, really break it down more granular. Product categories, product type. You also want to take a look at demographics, right? You'll probably notice that younger people, 18 to 30, those are the people who are going to be buying like the gaming consoles and the headphones and all the fancy tech and stuff like that. And maybe the older audience, the 30s to 50-year-olds, they're getting more of like the smart home devices, the Ring cameras, the things like that, right? They're more geared towards their demographic. But it's not even just demographics as far as like age and stuff like that. But think about region as well. Region is actually really important when you think about spending habits, right?
It definitely depends on your lifestyle.
Exactly. It all depends on your lifestyle for sure. And then of course, no matter how well you plan, no matter how much you crunch that data and you make the perfect demand forecast. You're always going to have to factor in external factors, right? There's always going to be things that are happening that are outside of your control. Things like what's the state of the economy like? Are we going through recession? Are we going through a pandemic? Again, and we bring that up because, of course, it's the most obvious example, right? Politics can also play a role too, but also just even looking at market trends, right? I know there's always seems to be during the holiday season that one product that everyone's after, like I remember when I was younger, it was Furby, but one year everyone was going for the Furby, and then it was, I think the Beanie Babies were super popular. I think they even made a movie, Jingle All the Way. The whole premise of that movie is everyone's going off that hot item, right? And it kind of still happens, maybe not to the extreme as it once did, but it definitely still happens where certain things are just really popular in a certain holiday season.
I think like all the Nintendo Switches and like PS5s are sold out during the pandemic too, because everyone's at home.
Exactly.
Right?
Right? Yeah. So that's a perfect example of a market trend, right? So yeah, something like that is definitely to keep an eye on for sure, because it's going to dictate where people are putting their money. And another external factor you really should think about are promotions, internal and external, because your own internal promotions are obviously going to impact how much inventory you're going to need. For example, if you're running a promotion on Black Friday for a gaming console and it's like 50% off, chances are you're going to sell a lot more gaming consoles than you normally do. So obviously that's going to dictate how much you
people
order.
Love deals.
Yeah, people love deals. I love deals. I mean, right? But it's not just your promotions, but it's other people's promotions as well, right? So if you're your competitor, if they're selling a lot of TVs, for example, and have a lot of TVs on sale, chances are that people, that's probably what they're looking for. That's where they're going to be spending their money. You're probably going to have to combat those. If they have like every TV's on sale, you'll probably have to do not maybe every TV, but you'll have to do a few that are going to be competitive sales. The price wars, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, all the external factors, all of the data put together. Once you kind of put all that in a blender and you mix it all up, that should generally give you a good idea of what you're going to need for the holiday for demand forecasting.
That's a really thoughtful example. Yeah. So just to recap, the 4 main points are: number 1, gather data; number 2, identify the trends; number 3, segment the data; and number 4, adjust for external factors.
You got it. So another big tip for businesses during this period of time, if you're looking to manage inventory, I would always suggest that you invest in inventory management software. Of course, you knew we were going to say it. We're inFlow. It's kind of our bread and butter, right? So we're going to, but it is true, right? It is ultimately is true. We say it for a reason. If you're a smaller business, you could get by using the spreadsheets for a shorter period of time, but as you grow, things are going to get just more unmanageable. Things are going to get really crazy, really fast, right? So the sooner that you implement some sort of system, the better, ultimately, because then it's in place, you don't have to worry about it, and it can grow along with you rather than you're growing out of the system, right? And that's what you will do if you're running off of spreadsheets, because I have to say something bad about spreadsheets every episode. Okay, got my quota, moving on.
So what are the main benefits of having inventory management software?
So there's a ton of benefits, but the big one obviously is, the obvious one is you're going to have improved inventory accuracy, right? You're going to have just a better idea of what you have, right? And that is going to obviously make it so that you know what to order and what you don't need to order and things like that, right? And not just the improved accuracy, but you're going to have like real-time information and real-time adjustments to your stock, right? If you're running things off of a spreadsheet, it's going to be a lot more difficult to keep those things up to date. For example, say you're in the office and I need to go fulfill this order. You run back to the warehouse or your stock room or whatever, you pick up that item. Now you have to go all the way back and you got to like type it into your spreadsheet, and maybe you have multiple spreadsheets and multiple systems. So multiple locations and it becomes kind of a chaos. Maybe you're coming back to the office and you get sidetracked and an employee wants some information and then you completely forget to do the spreadsheet, right? So there's all kinds of things that can come into play when you're just doing things like that. But if you have a real-time system in place, when you go back to get that item from the stock room, you can just take the app with you, update it on the go as you take it off the shelf. That way it updates in your system. If you have multiple locations, it's updating on the system so that other people at other locations know that you also took it off the shelf. So it's great for that.
Better inventory visibility.
It's the best inventory, the only kind of inventory visibility, But then another big thing is we're living in a modern day of tech, right? Everyone generally is using technology, and somewhere software is very big. If you're running a business, chances are you're using other technology. Your tech stack is probably fairly large, depending on your workflow, right? So you're probably already using things like QuickBooks for your accounting or Xero. You might be using Shopify if you're doing e-commerce and stuff like that. So if you're using those things, you want a system that's going to be able to talk with them, that's going to integrate seamlessly. And, a good inventory management system like inFlow, for example, it can do that, right? Like inFlow. I should just hold up the mug every time you mention it. Yeah. Like inFlow, take a sip. Yeah, but they'll be able to talk with those systems and they'll be able to talk with one another. That it avoids a lot of the double data entry and it just streamlines the process a lot. But you also, no matter what system you use, you should really be finding one that is easy to use and has some sort of analytical features in it, like reporting or something like that, to make the gathering of the data, that thing that we were talking a lot about, make that process a lot simpler. inFlow, for example, our UI is fantastic. We really strive to make our software incredibly easy to use. We want it so that people can pick it up and get going with it and get it implemented as quickly as possible. So we are all about easy of use for that. And of course, we do have a reporting feature as well. So making collecting data super simple, super easy. We also have all of the other basic things that an inventory management system would need, like reorder points. We mentioned real-time inventory tracking. Of course, we have a super robust built-in barcoding system. So you can generate barcodes, you can print the barcodes, you can scan the barcodes, you can do all the barcodes
all
right
in one
there.
system.
All in one system. And you don't have to leave and go do all these other things. Yeah, so it's great. It's the perfect system for inventory to help you in this like really, really, really busy time of year.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what about when the holiday season ends? What should businesses do to prepare for the upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And the most important thing you can do is conduct a post-season inventory audit, right? And actually, with that being said, you should really be doing a pre-season inventory audit as well, right? It will give you a great starting place and then an ending place. Because inevitably, this is going to be the time of year where you have the most movement of inventory, right? Things are going to be moving in and out very, very, very quickly. And because of that, you're probably going to experience the most inventory shrinkage at this time of year. So with that in mind, if you have kind of these two, starting and ending placeholders, you're going to be able to crunch that data in that specific time period a lot easier. Yeah. And it's going to give you really great insights into like your top sellers, your underperformers, all that stuff, right? So it's very, very helpful in that way.
Well, now that we know how to calculate what a business demand will look like, how about working with suppliers? Because if retailers are busy, then that means suppliers are just as busy. So what are your tips for working with them?
Yeah, so I mean, that's with any business relationship, I think the most important thing is having a really good, strong relationship. And that is, it starts with clear communication, right? Having a really clear line of communication with your suppliers is incredibly important. It's going to help you in the long run. It's going to help them in the long run. It's going to be a very symbiotic relationship. And what I mean by that is, if there is a delay in a shipment or they're going to miss a shipment or something like that, they're going to be able to tell you in a very timely manner. They're going to be able to get on top of it and be like, hey, this isn't going to arrive when you thought it was going to. And it'll give you a chance to kind of pivot and to do, actually what brings me to my next point, pivot and go to another supplier, right? You should never put all your eggs in one basket. You should always have like a main supplier and then like a secondary supplier, a backup supplier, exactly, right? And I think that a lot of people, they find someone they like and then they just stick to that person. And that's great, but at the end of the day, things are always going to happen, right? So you need to be prepared for those moments and have that backup supplier. And then there's also this sounds easy enough, but order things ahead of time. Like really get ahead of the movement, right? Because a lot of businesses, it's not uncommon for them to start ordering for the holidays at in summertime, towards the end of summer. I won't go maybe the beginning of summer, but more towards the end of summertime.
Overprepared.
Yeah, you don't want to be overprepared. There is a thing as overprepared. Yeah. But yeah, you want to get that perfect balance of ordering so that you're getting ahead of the curve, but you're also not waiting so long that you're like at the back of the line, right?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a lot of trust that you're putting into a supplier to deliver what you need for your business. And if they messed up, then it falls on you. So
yeah, no, it's huge. I think that really paying attention to those supplier relationships and making sure that you're dealing with a very reliable supplier is important. You can only do so much vetting when you're finding those suppliers. I think it's all about just kind of personal experience too. Yeah. So once you've done a good amount of vetting on a supplier and you decide that you want to work with them, really keep an eye on like the performance of them. Like how are they performing? How are their lead times? Are their lead times fairly consistent or are they kind of all over the place with their shipment dates? And if that's the case, bring up any issues that you have, if their lead times kind of are all out of whack, let them know and be like, I'm sorry, you guys aren't reliable enough. I can't plan that well. All my numbers are all over the place. My safety stock, my order points, because you're not reliable enough, right? And if they remedy those issues and those concerns that you have, then, stick with them for sure, right? But if they don't, then it might be time to kind of look elsewhere for a supplier, because at the end of the day, their bad performance will eventually affect your performance. And then you're going to have a lot of angry customers.
Well, as y'all know, the holiday season can be unpredictable. Like even with the best planning in the world, things can still go wrong. So what are your tips for preparing for the unexpected?
Yeah, of course. I mean, no matter how good your demand forecasting is you're going to eventually run into some sort of unexpected circumstance that's going to probably cause a lot of chaos, right? So the best things that you can do to, prepare for those moments is, number one, carry extra safety stock. That's something that you should be doing year round anyway. It's something that we always recommend. I think we probably talk about it almost every episode. Safety stock gets brought up a lot here, right? But that's because it's so important. It's one of the most fundamental things about inventory management is safety stock, right? So having that safety stock in place, like there's a chance maybe you were kind of burning through it earlier in the year, maybe had a couple flash sales or something, right? Make sure that it's replenished by the time you get to the holiday season, because you're probably going to need it, right? And you might even want to consider increasing the amount of safety stock that you carry during that time, right? In fact, if you're running your workflow and you have reorder points for certain products, you might want to consider actually creating seasonal reorder points for those products that sell a lot more, right? Yeah. And I think with reordering, you should also factor in having a little extra cash put aside for those moments, those just-in-time those emergency budgets, right? So it's something that, for example, right? Say that you ordered a ton of, we'll go back to gaming consoles because we've been talking about it so much. So say you ordered a ton of these gaming consoles because you're running a promotion, you're going to sell a lot, and you always sell a lot, but you're also running a promotion. So you're going to sell even more. So you order best case scenario. You're like, I will never even sell these if hell freezes over kind of thing, right? But guess what? You have a really great problem and you ended up selling them all. I mean, it's a great problem to have, of course, but now you don't have the cash flow to actually replenish your stock. So now you have a bunch of other customers banging your door down for that item that you can't actually make that sale, right? So having a little extra money, a little extra cash flow during that period, just in case you need it to make those purchases, is really, really important. And I think that it's something that we do even as consumers, during this time of year.
Yeah, budget for Christmas.
Yeah. You have a little extra money on the side, put away, because you're probably going to spend a little extra money, not just on gifts, but like food and celebrations and all that. So your spending habits, you're going to need that extra money at this time of year for consumers. The same thing goes for businesses as well, right? And I think it's something that people kind of ignore because they think they're going to just figure it all out and they're going to get all the stock they need. But of course, there's going to be those times when you're not going to have the stock. You're not going to be able to make those shipments, and you're going to miss those shipments. Inevitably, for every business is going to come into that eventually, right? So I think what's really important is how you manage those moments, right? And that's all about keeping your customers informed, keeping them up to date. If you aren't going to be able to make their shipment, let them know. Let them know how long it's going to be. Let them know why. Let them know all of that stuff. Maybe even it's the holidays, the season of giving. Maybe even give them a little extra something in their package.
I'll make them happy for sure.
Yeah, for the trouble of having to wait, right? But if you keep them informed, it's going to be less likely they're going to be angry and they're going to try and do a chargeback or get a refund or cancel the
more
order.
Understanding if you communicate.
Exactly. They're more willing to wait for that item if you let them in on what's going on, right?
So far we discussed everything for preparing for the holiday season, but many businesses also face a challenge of handling returns and restocking. So what are your practical tips for navigating that process smoothly?
Yeah, so returns is a big one. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, this time is all about, again, gift giving. So what comes along with that is people are giving things to other people that haven't been vetted. They don't know if they're going to like them. They don't know if they're going to use them. So
or does it fit them? In clothes?
It fit them. That's a great one. Yeah, like exactly. Or if it's even going to work. Some things are just effective. I mean, hopefully not everything, but some things are, right? So, I mean, with that comes just even the fact that there's more influx in sales regardless, that just means there's definitely going to be a higher percentage of returns. But adding that extra factor of the fact that it's gift giving, you have even more returns that are coming into that. I mean, going back to the Boxing Day here in Canada, the reason it's called Boxing Day is because people are taking all of the things that they got on Christmas Day, and the day after they're going to the mall to return them with the boxes, hence Boxing Day.
I didn't know that was what was it called.
Yeah, that's actually where it came from, right? It's known as the day of returns, so we called it Boxing Day for that reason. Okay. You're unboxing, then bringing everything back with the box. to get your money back. Hopefully
we know.
you got a gift receipt with it, right?
Yeah, always get gift receipt.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's inevitable. Returns are going to happen. So what do you do? I mean, you just have to have a streamlined return process in place before the holidays. You should have one in place year round, but it's really important that it's in place and it's working, it's functioning properly for the holiday season. It should be well documented, clear and concise, and put somewhere where you, your customers, and everyone can know where it is and what's expected of you, what's expected of them. That way there's no confusion.
Yeah, I know most stores are pretty nice. Like they have an extended period of returns for the holidays. Like usually if you buy something in December, then you have until like January.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's actually something else you can do. Extend your return policy a little more for that period of time. That would be a great thing, because I mean, it takes the pressure off of you in that situation. You're not, you don't have a ton of people coming all at once trying to get the thing back. You know, you're giving
time.
Yeah, you're giving people more time, which will inevitably probably make them space out how much they're coming back and how much it's going to really impact your business, right? And then once you have those returns back, it's all about inspecting it immediately. You need to take a look at what the product is, what shape it's in. Has it come with the original packaging? Is it unopened? All that stuff is going to dictate then what you can do with the return.
Yeah, the quality of it.
Yeah, right. So if it's unopened, you can just restock it, throw it back in your inventory, good to go, no problem, right? If it's opened, depending on the state of the box and the packaging and stuff, you might be able to sell it for like, you know, an open box deal or something like that. If you have a really great relationship and agreement with your supplier, there's a good chance that you can even return your returns directly to the supplier for, you know, your money back. I don't know if that's a very popular thing, but it could, you know, I'm sure there are some situations where that happens a lot, right? So it really depends on, you know, what the product is, what your situation is, your agreement is with your supplier and all that. That's going to kind of dictate what you do with those items that are being returned. And I mean, returns, they're terrible, obviously. They're not something that you want. You don't want things to be coming back, but you kind of have to take it as it is. And what they can actually do, there is some positive that comes from returns, right? And that's the data, going back to the data, right? It's looking at the data, like, what is being returned? What is the frequency, and like how many products that you sell, of what percentage of those products were actually returned? That can tell you a lot and give you a lot of information, right? And a lot of granular information that on first glance, if you're just looking at sales data, it's not going to give you. Like, for example, say you sold a ton of these headphones, right? And you thought, wow, this is great. Next year I'm gonna start stocking like twice as much of these. I had a great deal of these sales and I want to get more of that, right? But then you actually look at your returns and you realize that half of those actually came back in returns. So while you're making a lot of really great sales, is it really worth it to stock that product if half of them are being returned anyway?
If it's a deeper issue, you gotta like check the headphones, the quality of it.
Exactly, right?
Then go back to your supplier and see.
Yes, and that goes back to the clear communication is you can then take that information back to the supplier and say, hey, you supplied me with these headphones. They sold really well, but you know, I got half of them got sent back, and you know, here's the reasons why. Maybe they were defective. Maybe they weren't, you know, what they intended to buy. Maybe they were advertised as being waterproof, but they weren't waterproof, or something like of that nature. They can kind of go back. I mean, the supplier can then take it to the manufacturer and say, hey, this was an issue. Yeah, just trickling down to the supply chain. It could kind of help everybody in that way, because it can inform you. You might not want to buy that anymore. The supplier might not even want to supply it anymore. And then the manufacturer maybe doesn't want to make it anymore. or better yet, maybe they fix the issue. They fix what's wrong with it, and then they ship it in a new version of itself, right? Hopefully that's what they do. Everyone's just like, this thing sucks, and they move on.
So to wrap it all up, what are the key takeaways for preparing for the holiday season?
Okay, yeah. So key takeaways, let's say. So first and foremost, data. Forecasting is crucial. So gather that data, crunch those numbers, identify those trends, all that stuff. That is rule number one. That's the most important. Number two, I would say pre and post season inventory audits. Keep on top, really like hyper focus in on that season and that season's data. So that way you can crunch those numbers specifically and kind of separate it from the rest of the year, right? Once you have that data, analyze your performance. Take a look at the products that are selling really well, the products that are underperforming, things like that, right? And of course, number four is going to be, don't underestimate the value of tech, right? Adopt the technology, automate wherever you can, and that's where inventory management software comes in, and other software too, like QuickBooks, like we mentioned, things like that. automate as much as you can. And the technology is going to help you do that, right? So automate for sure. And then of course, lastly is just be streamlining your process, make sure that everything is set and ready to go. Like your return policy is in place. You know what's going on with that. Make sure you have clear lines of communication with your suppliers and everything is set up there. Just make sure that everything is as streamlined as possible.
All right, so that brings us to the end of season 1 of Secret Life of Inventory. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you found this information helpful, please give us a 5-star rating, leave us a positive review, and make sure to share it with your fellow business owners who are also gearing up for the holiday rush.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we're going to be away for a couple of months crunching our own data, and we're going to be back in our brand new studio in season 2 in a few months. So we'll see you then.
Also, I think you'd be a great fit for our podcast. Our voice feels so weird.
I can just hear it. It feels like there's something like
I'm
in
scaring
your
people.
throat.
Like, hey, sweetheart, welcome to the podcast.
You sound like you're like a 50-year-old smoker, like a waitress in a diner. Like,
What can I get you, sweetheart?
That's not
also, if you think that you'd be a great guest for the podcast, just drop us a comment down below about who you are, why you think you'd make a great guest, and you can get a free trip to Toronto, all expenses paid. We'd love to hear from you. Happy holidays, everybody. We will see everyone next year in season 2.
Bye.
Bye.